Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, this podcast is about all things guitar. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into this episode of Shad's Guitar Show. I am Shad Worrell, your host, as always, and excited to be with you today to talk about all things guitar, right? I mean, the things that we're passionate about. And today is an especially exciting day for me because I was able to close the deal on a 2004 Heritage Groovemaster, which is Kenny Burrell's signature model from Heritage. And if you guys know anything about me, you will know that Kenny Burrell is far and away my absolute favorite guitar player ever. I love all of his work, everything he did, everything he has done. Just an absolutely fantastic player that I have admired since I started playing guitar. And I have wanted one of those Heritage Groovemasters for a long time, and you rarely ever find them. I've seen some Sunburst ones, but the one I found is in natural finish with highly flamed top and back, and it is just absolutely stunning, unmolested, no modifications, super clean condition, and I am just absolutely thrilled to have made the deal on it, and now I am going to be pacing the floor waiting for it to show up. Hopefully by the end of the week, but you know how it goes when you're waiting for shipping. A watched pop never boils, and waiting for a guitar seems to never want to show up. So, but hopefully it'll get here quickly, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So yeah, but it started me thinking about Heritage guitars. If I wasn't looking for this particular guitar, I'm not sure that I would ever really seek out a Heritage guitar. And it isn't because I've ever heard anything bad about them, that they aren't good guitars. And as a matter of fact, I've flipped guitars for years, and I have flipped a couple Heritage guitars, and I learned two things doing that. One, they are phenomenal guitars that, are equal or, even better in some ways than the Gibson counterparts. And two, they're incredibly difficult to sell because people don't seem to be that interested in them. And I feel like that may be because, much like G&L, who just went out and is gone now, unfortunately, they haven't done a great job of kind of speaking to the legacy of the brand, right? So we're going to get into Heritage guitars and really the connection they have to Gibson. And I think, we're going to learn some things about the company, about the guitars and everything, which is great. And maybe we'll all kind of develop a greater appreciation for Heritage. And maybe, once I get the Kenny Burrell Groovemaster, it'll be so good that it will, encourage me to seek out other models from Heritage. So our story begins with the roots of the American guitar industry. The company we know today as Gibson was founded by Orville Gibson in Kalamazoo, Michigan in the late 19th, early 20th century. The famous factory at 225 Parsons Street became the home of Gibson's mandolin, acoustic, and electric production. Over the decades, the site earned its place in guitar lore. In the early to mid-1980s, Gibson shifted production away from Kalamazoo, eventually closing or downsizing the Parsons Street facility. The shift left skilled luthiers, craftsmen, and the legacy of the site in flux. This set the stage for the next chapter. Enter the founding story of Heritage Guitars. So in 1985, a group of former Gibson workers left Gibson and formed Heritage Guitars, Inc. in Kalamazoo. Their mission was to carry forward the craftsmanship, the old-school approach of building guitars by the hands of artisans in the building where the legacy began. They leased the very same factory building that had hosted so much of Gibson's output over the preceding decades. And that continuity, the same walls, many of the same craftspeople, gives Heritage a direct lineage to the golden era of American guitar making. So why the name Heritage? Because the team wanted to emphasize tradition, legacy, and the idea of heritage in the sense of carrying the torch of the classic designs and build methods. Even if they were operating under a new name, The aesthetic DNA and the cultural vibe were tied to the Gibson tradition of Kalamazoo. From the outset, Heritage produced guitars that echoed classic solid body and semi-hollow forms, guitars that nod to the iconic shapes that Gibson popularized. According to sources, their first model was the H140, a single cutaway carved top solid body with two humbuckers, which, as you can probably guess, was a lot like a Les Paul. Heritage's early catalog included electric guitars, basses, mandolins, and a banjo, though eventually they pared back to focus just on electric guitars. They did not try to hide their connection, built in the same building by many of the same people in the same town. Yet they operated independently and under their own brand. There is no direct corporate ownership by Gibson of Heritage. Rather, the connection is human and historical. Ex-Gibson artisans, Gibson's old factory site, the heritage of build philosophies. Because Gibson had moved out and was focusing on other facilities, in particular Nashville, the founding of Heritage was a way for the craftsmen to remain in Kalamazoo rather than have to relocate. Many guitar enthusiasts view Heritage as a kind of gold standard alternative, maintaining older traditions of quality and build, somewhat resisting the larger scale manufacturing and cost cutting that crept into the industry over the decades. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Heritage found their niche with models like the H150, solid body, H535 and H575, semi-hollow and large arch top, fully hollow, became signature Heritage shapes. Heritage emphasized American handmade craftsmanship. They had smaller production runs relative to big brands. They used solid woods and premium woods in their bodies and tops, where others might use laminates. And they had a feel of boutique meets tradition. The brand also picked up respected endorsers. For instance, jazz guitarist Johnny Smith, long associated with Gibson, moved his endorsement from Gibson to Heritage in 1989. He cited his loyalty to the Kalamazoo artisans. The building remains in Kalamazoo and is steeped in guitar history aura, and many of the employees had decades of experience. Heritage remains a smaller guitar maker, more artisanal, rooted in tradition, a kind of refuge for vintage-inspired tone and build quality. But no company is immune to challenge, and Heritage has certainly faced its share of headwinds. Boutique-style production means higher cost per unit, smaller volumes, and thus vulnerability in crowded markets. In 2016, Heritage was purchased by Plaza Corp Realty Advisors, a Kalamazoo-based property development firm. In 2017, Malaysia-based tech company BandLab Technologies partnered with Plaza Corp and acquired a majority stake in Heritage, with vision towards revamped marketing, global distribution, and developing the factory campus into a mixed music destination. And as of today, Heritage continues to produce electric guitars, both solid body and hollow, semi-hollow designs, out of Kalamazoo, carrying on the legacy. Heritage stands today as a bridge between vintage guitar ethos and modern boutique craftsmanship, carrying forward the Kalamazoo legacy into the 21st century. And since I know many of you guys have a strong interest in the same aspects of guitar design that I do, let's talk a little bit about why all this matters. The fact that Heritage is housed in the original Gibson factory and has employed craftsmen from the prior era means design cues and build techniques have true authenticity. Okay, so as an interesting aside to all this, I wondered, because we all know that Gibson is not shy about handing out cease and desist orders, when you look at Heritage guitars, there's a clear connection to all of the designs that Gibson has, especially to the Heritage Les Paul style guitar, the ES335, the hollow bodies. I mean, it's very obvious that those designs are interconnected. So how are they able to do this when so many other companies have been handed cease and desist orders? Well, there was an original agreement in 1991 between Gibson and Heritage, which allowed Heritage to continue building guitars in the historic Kalamazoo factory, but with certain limitations on copying designs. So now in 2020, at the height of Gibson's go after everybody era, Gibson asserted that a new management team at Heritage was violating the agreement and demanded they cease operations as the only acceptable solution. Heritage's response? Well, they countered with their own lawsuit, asking the court to confirm its right to continue operating and alleging a campaign of harassment from Gibson. And ultimately, what was the court's opinion? Well, the U.S. District Judge found Gibson's claims to be objectively baseless, suggesting the company failed to prove Heritage had violated the original agreement. The settlement? The lawsuit was settled in January of 2023, with both parties agreeing to dismiss all claims with prejudice. This means the legal fight is over, and Heritage is free to continue building its guitars without a new cease and desist order. And while there isn't nearly as much talk on the internet about Heritage as there is about Gibson, the things that you do hear about Heritage are almost always positive. And Gibson, let's be honest, we all know is a mixed bag. They can be very hit or miss. And you guys know that I am the sales manager for a boutique guitar shop here in California, and we are a Gibson dealer. We get everything from Epiphone guitars all the way up to Murphy Lab, guitars. And I can tell you that we often see things that are, head scratchers in terms of QC, and that's no surprise. You guys have all heard stories about, the quality control at Gibson being incredibly hit or miss. But I don't hear that about Heritage. The people who like those guitars will often, brag about how great their guitars are and cite the great quality control at Heritage as a reason why they are, Heritage enthusiasts and do like the guitars so much. And I'm, of course, as I already said, incredibly excited to get my Groove Master Kenny Burrell signature Heritage, which should be here in a few days. And I'll certainly let you guys know in the next episode my thoughts on that particular guitar. I'll also be doing demos of it that you can find on Shad's Guitar Show on YouTube. And if you aren't subscribed and following me over there, definitely go check it out. There's some great content there. And also Shad's Guitar Show on Instagram. Please go over there and give me a follow. And I'll be showing you guys that incredible Kenny Burrell Groove Master Heritage signature model as soon as I get it. So that's going to do it for this cursory glance at Heritage guitars. And maybe you learned a little something about the brand, or maybe they're now slightly on your radar and you might take a look at what they have to offer. And hopefully you do, because I think they do make some really cool stuff. And hey, maybe one of the models they make will end up being the best guitar for you. But even if it isn't, you can still be the best guitarist as long as you're having the most fun.